Back at the SPARQ Observatory, we're now diving into Photoshop just to do some cleanup on the image. PixInsight does a really great job, and you can actually end your image with PixInsight if you want to. I've always gone into Photoshop at the end because I'm familiar with it, and I like to use some of the tools that are in Photoshop. Photoshop has many more tools than PixInsight, even though PixInsight has a ton of things. But Photoshop, of course, has been around for a long time, and it is not a astrophotography specific tool. It's for all sorts of photographs and artworks and graphics and all sorts of things. So there's lots of stuff you can do with it. If you remember, the last thing that we did in PixInsight is we saved the PixInsight file format, which is XISF, into a TIFF so that we could use it in Photoshop. And you may remember that I saved it in two different ways because I wanted to show you what the difference is in Photoshop. What I have open right now is the 16-bit save, and we also did a 32-bit save, and the 32-bit save is this one. And this does not look like something I want to mess around with. I feel like I've already dealt with background and dealt with a lot of the issues that we see here. And so it's 32-bit is not something that I want to deal with in Photoshop. I'm just going to be dealing with 16-bit. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and go back to 16-bit. Real basic thing about Photoshop, and I'll be going through some basic things as we go through these different video tutorials. The first one is how to size the image. I'm at home on my Mac. And what I use is Command plus to make the image larger and Command minus to make the image smaller, and to get the image back to its original size, the size that fits the window best, it's Command 0. So if I want to zoom out, right now I'm hitting Command minus. Now I'm hitting Command plus to zoom back in, and we can get in really far. We can get in so far that we can actually see the grids for the pixels. And okay, maybe I've gone too far. How do I get it right back? Command 0. One thing to mention before you start working with Photoshop, and actually with anything, is to make sure that your computer screen itself is clean. Because the first thing we're going to be looking for is pixels that aren't correct, that are what I call bad pixels. And you may see something that looks like a bad pixel in the image, but it's actually a splotch left over from the lunch you were too sloppy with a few hours ago. So we want to make sure that we have our screen cleaned first, and then we're going to zoom in and look for bad pixels. So I'm going to again hit Command plus, and I like to go in pretty far, maybe not as far as to where I can like really see the grid, but pretty far in there. And I want to be methodical about it. So for me, I always start in the upper left-hand corner and go all the way across left to right, and then go down one level, and then go right to left. So if I'm here and I'm looking for bad pixels, I'm going to come over here and just use the scroll bar to go all the way to the end, look for bad pixels until I get to the end of the image. And then when I'm here, here's the right edge of the image, then I come down, and then I'll go back the other way and look for bad pixels. All right, so let's look for some bad pixels, and I already see that there are some in there. We have a really strange artifact that's happening, and this is at the edges. If you look at the edges, the left edge and the top edge, there are some kind of greenish pixels that are kind of popping up against a black band background. I'll go ahead and blow this up one more time so we can see it a little bit there. You might be able to see that a little bit better. Green pixels with black background. I don't see anything in the main part of the image, at least not here. So I'm going to start with actually cleaning up these edges first. So one thing I could do is I could just crop the image. The cropping tool is here, and you can move in the corners, move the sides, move the top and bottom to crop, but I'm not going to do that. By the way, to get out of any tool here, you just come up to the top and click the move tool, which is the top icon in this thing, and it'll get you out of whatever tool you're in. So there are a lot of ways to fix bad pixels. One of them is to use the paintbrush. One of them is to use the clone stamp, and one of the other ways is to use the healing brush. For something like this, where I'm going to be changing a whole bunch of pixels, going in a particular direction, left to right or top to bottom, I'm going to select the clone stamp. And so for the clone stamp and for the paintbrush, it's different for the healing brush, but for the paintbrush and the clone stamp, you have to specify a source. And what a source is for Photoshop is just a point that you select somewhere else in the image that you're going to use as the kind of master to put over top of the parts that you don't want to see, that you want to fix. So I'm actually going to use the paintbrush first to show you how the paintbrush works. So I've selected the paintbrush here. And let's say that for some reason I really like the color of this star and I want the whole edge to be this color. I'm going to make my paintbrush a little smaller. We make it smaller by hitting the left bracket on the keyboard, and we make it bigger by hitting the right bracket. This is true for most of the tools in Photoshop when you have to size a brush or some sort of tool. So I'm going to get it right there. That's the color I want. I'm now going to hit the Option key on my Mac, and you see the little eyedropper came up. And so the eyedropper is saying, like, we're going to take a sample of this color, and now I'm going to click on it. And that's the color we have. And now if I wanted to replace all this up here with that one color, I have the paintbrush selected. All I have to do is go like that, and I can draw all over the place, and it's that color. All right, we obviously don't want that, so we're going to hit Command Z to get rid of it. If I want to see it again, it's Command Shift Z. In PixInsight, you may remember it's Command Z and Command Y, or was it Control Z, Control Y? And for my Mac on Photoshop, it's Command Z and Command Shift Z. So Command Z gets rid of it, Command Shift Z puts it back in place. So there we are. So that's how that works with the paintbrush. Sometimes you do need to use the paintbrush if you have things like bloom stars or something, and you need to do some major fixes. So when I clicked on the star here, that with the paintbrush and held down the Option key and got the eyedropper, that is what's called the point source. So the eyedropper is showing us what we have for a point source. To get all these to kind of match what's near it, I'm actually going to use a similar tool, but it's called the clone stamp tool. It's right here, one underneath the paintbrush. And what this does is once you specify a point source and you start moving along, it actually changes the point source in the same way that you're moving. So let's say, for example, that I want to, that I decide that I want to use this as a point source going from left to right here through this star, just as an example. And I'm just going to go above it. So I have the clone stamp selected. I'm going to hold down Option, and we have not an eyedropper, but we have that little X thing. And now I'm going to come up here, and what it's going to paint up here is going to be what is down here as I move the cursor. So as I move over top of that star, you can see that I'm getting a plus sign, and that is where the point source is. So as I go through here, we're going to see that it paints a star above, right? If I go up here, the point source is moving with me. As I go across, I can draw that star up there if I want to. So that's how we work. If I come down here, here's the point source, boom. I've drawn a star down there. So again, we don't want to do that, so we're going to hit Command Z, and I'm going to undo a couple of these so we can just continually hit Command Z to get rid of all the weird stuff that we did. But this is a good place using the clone stamp to do these edges. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here. I don't want to start in the corner because I've got some green stuff on the left. I'm going to go from left to right. And I'm just going to go straight up from where my source is. So I've got clone stamp selected. I'm going here, and I'm just going to draw right across. And we're going to get rid of all this stuff that's here. So I'm going to do this with all of the edges, and when I'm done, I'm going to leave you for right now, and I'm going to do these edges, and then we'll come back, and then we're going to look at the interior of the image and see if there's anything that we need to fix. So I will see you on the flip side of this clone stamp work I've got to do. Again, I have gotten rid of the green pixels that are around the edge, and now I want to dive into the image itself. And so I'm going to blow up the image again. And I'm going to very methodically, hopefully, start up in the upper left-hand corner. And if I see any, generally what you would see would be, you might see like one pixel that is a really bright color or an odd color or white or something like that. Now, PixInsight does a great job. If you've done your calibration frames correctly and applied them correctly, especially the dark frames, which are what very often present you with hot pixels. If you've used the dark frames correctly, applied them correctly in your calibration frames routine, that gets rid of a lot of them. And if you may remember that right after that, we did PixInsight's cosmetic correction, where it's looking at all the pixels in the images and again seeing if any of them are too hot or too cold, too bright or too dark compared to what's right around it. So PixInsight does a great job. So looking for bad pixels used to be something that was you would find them all the time, and now it's with the tools in PixInsight, not so much. But I've got this blown up pretty good. We're starting in the upper left-hand corner, and again, I don't see anything here. I'm just going to click the scroll bar down in the opposite corner to go from left to right. I don't see anything in here. Got some nice little spiral galaxies here. Another one there, a couple. And we're at the edge. When we're at the edge, I just come over here and go down. And then I go back the other direction. And so you want to be methodical about looking at things. And here we have the upper edge of our galaxy. So that's how that's done. I'm not going to bore you with going through the whole process, going through the whole image. I'll do that myself on my own time. But I want to give you an example of what would happen, what you can do if you do see a bad pixel. And so I'm going to pick out just a star somewhere, a little star. How about this little guy? Let's say that this is not a star, but this is a group of bad pixels. What can we do about that? Well, we already know how to use the clone stamp tool. So that is one way that we can deal with it. We can select an area. And for the clone stamp, you want to be kind of close, but you can't be too close to it because you can end up having your point sample be the same place that you want to paint over. So it's better you want to be as close as you can, but not right on top of where you are. So I'm going to be about here with it. And if I just go ahead and do that, then I'm ready to, you can see where the point source is, which is the cross, the plus sign, and the circles, which is where I'm going to be painting. And I just go across like that. And there we go. That would be those bad pixels gone. I'm going to undo that, Command Z to bring the star back, and I'm going to give you another option. Another option would be to use the paintbrush. You can use the paintbrush here. Again, we can adjust the size of the brush, small to little using the brackets. And I also want to mention you can change the opacity. In other words, if you think of this as ink, how much ink am I actually going to pour on here? So we have an opacity of 100%. Flow is also related to that. And if I have this at 100% and I decide that I want to sample like way over here, so now I've sampled with my paintbrush and I'm painting over here, boom, gone. Command Z. But let's say I want to, for some reason, maybe I want to only just do 50%. And we're going to be dealing with different levels of opacity with some other techniques we're going to use in Photoshop. We can do the same thing. Sample out there. And if I go across, you can see that it painted a little bit, but we can still see a little bit of the star back there. Normally for dead pixels, or I should say hot pixels, you're going to want to just completely obliterate it. And unless it's in the middle of something, it could be, say, like in this red star or somewhere else in the galaxy where there's some color, there might be one bright white pixel. And in that case, you want to use the clone stamp or the tool I'm about to use, which is actually my preferred tool, and that is the the spot healing brush. And so what this, and that's right above. So these are all kind of grouped the same: the clone stamp, brush tool, and then the spot healing brush. And what the spot healing brush does is it automatically looks at the surrounding pixels for where you're about to click. You don't do you don't do a sample anywhere. You don't do an eyedropper. You're not doing a point sample anywhere. You just click where you want the object to disappear or change, and what Photoshop is going to do is it's going to look outside that circle at all the pixels surrounding this, what's inside the circle, and just make the inside of the circle the same as all the pixels on the outside. So I have that selected, and I'm just going to click on this little star, and gone. I can see a little bit of the edge because I made the circle a little bit too small. So we're going to do that again. If I make the circle bigger to really make sure I get the whole star, that's a little bit exaggerated. And you can see that the star is completely gone. And it doesn't leave a ring or anything like that because it's actually taking the surrounding pixels from all outside the ring, from everywhere, not just from one spot. Okay, so if you have a bad pixel, I suggest that the spot healing brush is the best way to go for that. Okay, so let's just assume that we've gone through our entire image. I'm going to do that on my own without you guys. And you go through and you see what you can find in terms of things. But mainly what you're looking for are single squares, single pixels that do not look like anything else surrounding them. A single pixels that you can see is not going to be a star. It's just going to be some sort of artifact, either that the cosmetic correction didn't pick up or the dark calibration didn't pick up. Okay, so that's kind of how we fix little errors like that in Photoshop. I like to do that first before going on to the next items. So again, this is Steve Smith at the SPARQ Observatory. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next Photoshop astrophotography video.